All right, we're live from Cancun, Sands, and man, it's great to see this guy. I've interviewed him. He's been on the show in very unique settings in the couple times he's been on. You may not remember this, but you were on with us from somebody's living room.
Yes, I remember very well.
In Texas, because it was a private gig
party
that I was hosting and you were playing. And I need to do the radio show every day. And I said to Randy, whose house it was, I said, hey, man, do you have a hookup for me for radio? And they said, yeah, in my living room. And I said, you got good internet? He goes, I'm an IT guy. I go, beautiful. And then Rick was there sound checking. We sat in the guy's living room and chatted for a bit. And here we are in what I think is a kid's playroom.
Which this place doesn't allow kids, so I'm really curious why they have so much kids stuff around here.
Well, this event doesn't.
But they do it normally?
Yeah, normally they do. So we're in this room, and Rick Springfield just knocked out a meet and greet with a bunch of people in what looked like record time. I said, you're a seasoned pro at that, man. I saw you had it down. You put the people in position, photo, thank you, handshake, and they move.
Yep, I've done it a few times. And Joey is great at that too. My guy really knows how to run them through.
Yeah, that was awesome too. I mean, I've seen many in action, but you had that was a well-tuned machine. As a matter of fact, the promoter was saying, hey, we might need Rick a little later before he gets to you. Is that okay? And I said, well, yeah, as long as it's okay with him. And you got done early.
Yeah.
In all your years of doing meet and greets, what's like the craziest meet and greet experience if you had? I mean, I'm imagining you got girls jumping and screaming and all that, but is there somebody ever give you something weird or a weird exchange?
In meet and greets, it's usually not so much. They're more, people get more radical. By mail, I've gotten stuff like, pubic hair in the mail. Very weird. But meet and greets, they're usually, everyone's usually pretty well behaved. It's been great. You get the occasional odd one, but that's life.
Yeah. So are you out now touring, or are you doing one-off gigs? What are you doing right now?
I go out for about 4 dates and then go home because I can't stay away from home, I used to go out for 3 months.
Right.
I can't do that. And I have friends my age that actually still go out for that long, and they got families, and it's just really hard to stay out that long. So I go out for a couple of shows and go home, and it keeps it fresh and keeps it fun for me.
Yeah.
I'm doing it because as my connection with humanity, because I'm a real loner normally. I have maybe 2 friends. Well, maybe one, but yeah, it's really like, I don't go out at home. I'm really just pretty much a homebody.
Were you always like that?
Yeah, it was part of the fact that I suffered from depression. I didn't realize it when I was a kid. And so they call me a loner, because I just didn't want to be around people. And that was because I was dealing with a lot of stuff in my head. And I think that's just carried over.
Have you been able to manage that better as you've gotten older?
Yeah, definitely. I started my autobiography out with the fact that I tried to hang myself when I was 16.
Yeah, I read that online, and I don't mean to go into right out of the gate like real heavy stuff, but this might be helpful to people listening who
That's the only reason I talk about it. I don't talk about it.
I think it's great.
For my benefit.
I think it's great that you do and that you are open about it. But it's 16.
Yeah.
And thank God it was obviously unsuccessful, but that's how early you realized you had a problem.
Yeah.
And now for people that may not know this, and your mind's going to be blown because I'm sitting 3 feet away from Rick Springfield right now talking to him, and the man is 75 years old and honestly looks like he's about, I'm not even shitting you, man, 40, 45 years old, 50 at the most. So I want to get into what your secret is in a second because I need to know it. But tell me about dealing with that at that age, at 17. You're talking what? That puts you in what, the 60s? You were
66, 67.
And how do they after you had this attempted to take your own life? Your parents, your people around you, like what happens at that time?
There was nobody there. It was my parents were working, and at that point I was staying away from school. I wasn't very successful at school, and that was the only arena a kid could be successful in if you weren't into sports or anything like that. I was playing guitar, but nobody kind of really cared about that at school. And so I was just miserable. I hated school. It always felt like prison to me. And I wasn't in the clique. I was never in the clique. I was always kind of the outlier guy, you know. And it just got to me. I was feeling bad about myself. I really had a lot of dark thoughts about myself at that point.
That young?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of writers, you know, I mean, I consider myself a writer really more than anything. I just perform because it's fun, you know.
And a way to deliver your songs.
Yeah, and because no one else, you know, would sing them back when I was writing them. But it was... sorry, I have ADD too. What were we talking about?
Just how you were treated for it at that time when you did this.
Well, nobody, you know, my mom finally read she didn't read my autobiography, but someone told her that I'd written this in my autobiography, and she denied it. She couldn't believe it. She said, "No, you didn't do that." She thought I made it up for the book. So it was kept very. Nobody knew about it. I had a rope burn around my neck for like 3 weeks, and wore a turtleneck so, you know, that no one could see. I mean, we weren't that, now we're helicopter parents and, you know, and everything matters. And back then it was like, I just went to school the next day and thought, okay, you know, I didn't do it, so maybe there's a reason. I thought somewhere in the back of my head, I thought maybe there's a reason that it wasn't successful. But it's been with me ever since, you know. I've been close to it again, but and you know, and people say, you know, when they see successful people offering themselves, and there's nothing to do with how successful you are. It's all to do with what goes on inside, and I'm managing it, and I write. You know, when I get down, I write. Sometimes it'll just hit me, and I won't know why, and other times there'll be a reason, and I only talk about it because it frees me a little bit to talk about it, and I think it frees other people to a degree to know that, you know, I've had a fairly okay life, you know, and haven't collapsed, you know, from it.
I imagine you were treated. You're in some sort of treatment on a regular basis for it, whether it be meds, therapy, any of that stuff?
They didn't have, no one knew what depression was back then.
But that's why I was asking about the time frame. Then I would said your age, because it would have been that long ago.
Yeah.
It's looked at very differently now. I mean, there's so many people that need help, obviously.
Yeah, and there's, you know, awareness of it. There's hotlines, and, you know, and I've done some stuff for charities who focus solely on suicide. But no one talked about it, and I went to my mom saw I was in trouble mentally, you know. She didn't know about that, but she knew because I'd stayed away from school. I got kicked out of school in 11th grade because I wasn't attending, and I was just staying home and playing guitar. And so she got me into a psychiatrist for a while, but he was, you know, wasn't anything real that helped me at all. It was just some guy fresh out of school that was just applying his templates on me as far as trying to figure out what was going on with me, and it didn't. And I hated it, and I just bailed on that too. So there wasn't any concerted effort. There wasn't a gathering around of it. There wasn't a liberating moment or anything. It was just I went on with my life.
How about now, though? Because you say you still struggle with it. So now do you get help when you need it?
In the middle of the 80s, I pulled the plug. In 85, I pulled the plug, and just because I was, successful as I thought I wanted to be, you know, had a beautiful house and wife and a new kid, and it was just not, and I was miserable. And so I started seeing a Jungian therapist who'd actually learned from Carl Jung. He was a really deep guy, and it was, I saw him for about 5-6 years. And it was, therapy's difficult to quantize. I know it helped because suddenly I saw the things that were demons that were chasing me, kind of thing, you know. But you don't walk into a therapist's office and walk out going, "All right, hallelujah, I'm cured."
Right.
You know, the mind is more complex than we can even begin to imagine. So all kinds of wires can go wrong and shit, but it was really helpful because I focused on myself and why, you know, trying to figure out why. And a lot of it's chemical, you know, a lot of it just is, and other things are just the way I take things. Like I was always very, very severely battered by critics because I was, you know, came out of according to most, you know, critics, I came out of a soap opera, which is not true. I was playing guitar since I was, you know, 14 years old. But so I got a lot of critical bashings initially when I first came out, and that really hit me hard too. That was kind of almost like slap on the face, you know.
Well, your music career, you started in obviously you're Australian and you started there and all that, but you actually started before you were even Rick Springfield, the solo artist. You actually started in a very young in a band, right? Mm-hmm. Band was called Zoot. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
So what was that? A pop band? Was it like a teeny pop thing, or what was that at the time?
Sorry, I've got.
That's okay. Rick's got a cold as well on top of all this.
Yeah. So I was in a band. I went to Vietnam in a band actually to play for the troops in 1968, 69.
How old were you at this time? At this point?
17.
17. And was 18. this Zoot or something else?
No. This was the band that became kind of into a band that went into Zoot. But
okay.
Zoot was it was a teen band initially, and when I came, you know, when I joined, they were fairly successful when I joined them. But Led Zeppelin was on the horizon, and I was a guitar player, and I wanted, you know, I'm going this teeny bopper stuff, you know, we've got to take it, you know, get heavier. So I pushed them in a much heavier direction, and we had actually a biggest hit with a heavy metal version of Eleanor Rigby.
Really?
Yeah.
It was a hit in Australia?
Yeah, it was a huge hit there, and that actually was very guitar-based, you know, and you can see it on YouTube if you look up Zoot Eleanor Rigby. It's on there.
Z-O-O-T, right?
Z-O-O-T, yeah.
And were you the singer as well?
No, I was a guitar player.
Just guitar?
There was a three-piece with a singer.
Okay.
And we were a really good band. The bass player, I came over here and had a solo career. The bass player formed Little River Band.
Oh, wow.
And the singer became a big TV star in Australia. So, it was like kind of they called a super group in reverse, where we kind of split up and went on to bigger and better things.
Right.
Sorry, what was your question?
Well, I'm talking about the evolution of your music here, because you were talking about the things you had to overcome in terms of being a musician, because you were looked at as this soap opera actor trying to do rock, which wasn't the case. Mm-hmm. But I would imagine there's also you want to come out and you want to be a legit rock artist, and you're also in this thing that I'm in this, you know, teen pop band or whatever as well. So you had several obstacles to overcome in terms of, you know, getting out there and people looking at you just as a musician.
Well, certainly over here, because I had one solo single in Australia that was a hit. And then I started playing guitar for my girlfriend at the time. And it was a weird thing. Australia was a very small scene back then. And, you know, it was no weird thing to suddenly have a hit single as a solo artist. And then, you know, I'm playing with my girlfriend, you know, backing her up with guitar. So it was, and then I left Australia in the middle of that and got a deal over here. I had a deal over here that Steve Bender, who was the director for the Elvis special, the big, you know, the black leather one.
The comeback.
Back, yeah.
Yeah.
Steve was a great guy, and he found me in Australia and brought me over here. And that was how I got over here. And
how did he find you there?
Robbie Porter, an Australian guy whose records I used to buy as a kid, was a steel guitar player. And I used to buy his records as a kid. And then when he got older, he went around looking for Australian artists, because no one was tapping into Australia then. No one knew.
There's no internet.
Where it was. Yeah, no one knew about Australia. You know, there was no shrimp on the Barbie. And when
no Outback steak.
When I first came over here, people would say, "Oh, you're from Australia. How long did it take you to learn English?" But it was, so I came over. Steve brought me over here, and I got a deal with Capitol, and had a hit with a song called "Speak to the Sky." That was the first song that was a hit in Australia. And Yeah, and it just kind of, then they started putting me in all these teen magazines, and that was just, I had no idea what a teen magazine was. You know, I do all these interviews about my music, and they'd print up a story about, you know, is Rick Springfield too tall to love or something. Shit, you know. And I'd never seen a teen magazine before, so I'm going, this is not right. I came over, you know, to be a musician, and they're trying to tout me with all these, you know, the Williams brothers and, you know, all these teen idols from the 70s. So it was a difficult thing. And then I ended up getting into a soap opera that had, you know, just fell into it by chance.
There was never any aspiration to act. It just kind of...
Yeah, it was. I started acting in 75, actually, because my brother had acted in Australia, and he'd been really successful in Australia. There was like one TV show in Australia. He was on it 3 times. And it was always interesting to me. So I started... between record deals, I started going to an acting class, which, you know, thinking I could maybe make some money as an actor while I'm waiting for a new record deal, which was stupid because all the kids in the acting class were waiting tables, to, you know, while they're waiting for an acting gig. So I was pretty naive, but I actually got signed. I was one of the last contract players at Universal, and got signed to Universal and started to work in, you know, Incredible Hulk and Battlestar Galactica, Rockford Files, all those kind of 70s shows. So I started working as an actor then.
But your thing was, it sounds like to me, more than singing, more than acting, guitar playing. That was the real passion, right?
That was my passion. And then writing. Once I started writing with the Australian band, and I said, I got a couple of songs, and I played them, and they said, great, let's record it. I went, what? You know, I was amazed that they'd record songs that I'd written. So I started writing for real then. And writing and guitar playing were kind of the 2 things that I focused on.
So I've limited time with you because they just told me you got to be done in 10 minutes. But speaking of songwriting, you've had many hits, and many of your hits you did write. And I always find it interesting. I brought this story up before. We have a good mutual friend in Sammy Hagar. Mm-hmm. And I've Done Everything for You is a Sammy Hagar written song that he actually recorded about a year before you did it. And it sounds, if people have heard Sammy's version, pretty similar, actually. Yeah. It's not radically different at all. And Sammy just had his party in Vegas. We were both there, and you got up and did the song with him and all of that. How did that song come to you? And did you have hesitation to do a song that you had not written? Was there any reservations there being a songwriter? Yeah,
there was actually. I had my demos. I had my TAC 4-track, and I had drums that I'd like with a wooden spoon and an ottoman and the end of a broom handle and a cushion that I'd EQ to make them sound like drums, and a bass, and I'd guitars and keyboards, and I'd do these multi-tracking demos, and I had all the Working Class Dog demos all done, and my manager was Joe Gottfried, who owned Sound City, which was the place Dave Grohl did the whole documentary about. And he went to Keith, because Keith was a big producer
Olsen?
At that point. Yeah, Keith Olsen. And said, would you do a couple of songs of Springfield? And Keith said, let me hear the demo. So I took him over, and as soon as he heard Jesse's Girl, he started, yeah, that one. And he said, well, what about the second song? He said, I want to bring another song in. And I thought, oh, because as a writer, I thought there were some great songs on there. I thought he could have picked any other one of the second song. He says there's a song called I've Done Everything for You that I tried to give to Pat Benatar, but she thought it was too macho for her, so I want you to record it. So he was Keith Olsen. I said, well, he's doing one of my songs, so I'll do this. And it was, and Neil Giraldo actually did a lot of the guitar work on that, because Keith didn't know I was a guitar player even. I mean, it was crazy. But so Neil did an arrangement of that song. I arranged Jesse's Girl, but he did the arrangement of I've Done Everything for You. And I think it would, it was the right song after Jesse's Girl, but it was certainly, powered by the success of Jesse's Girl to start with,
I've always asked Sammy about it. you know the answer he gives because Rick just spit his water out of his mouth every time I ask Sam. I go, Sam, how do you write a song like that? It almost sounds the same. And a year later, this other guy comes out and has a big hit with it, and yours didn't do shit. And he goes, because the motherfucker's better looking than me. That's why, Trunk.
That's right.
He said the answer that he always gives on that.
Yeah.
Jesse's Girl obviously being your biggest song. It sounds like I know the answer to this from what you said, and that it's yes. But did you know? I'm always curious about this because almost every artist has the song. You got a bunch of hits, but the song, right? Yeah. And in the case of Rick Springfield, Jesse's Girl is the song. Mm-hmm. When you wrote it, did you have any inkling that it was special and that was going to be your signature song, or was it just another track?
No, I thought it was a good song. I thought it was a good album song. I didn't even think it was a single. I thought there were more catchier songs on the album. And I was surprised when they actually released that as a single.
Really?
Yeah, and I wasn't because Keith produced it, so they would pick that because that's an in. But I thought there were better songs, and I thought, but I was wrong, so I'm glad about that.
Right.
But it was when I wrote it, it was. I remember thinking, because when you write, you're the judge and jury right there. If I come back to it a day later and I don't like it, I dump it. But if I do like it and it charges me up, then I finish it. And that had enough in it to charge me up. It was really a combination of two songs. I remember the beginning of the verse and the B section of the verse were two different songs, and I suddenly found they fit together, and it was just one of those things, Yeah,
it's amazing. And didn't the metal band Coheed and Cambria do a version of it? What did they do? A remake or a sequel?
No, they did a sequel. Yeah, he wrote a sequel to it, and I sang on it and was in the video just for fun because he's a great guy, and he's into a lot of the same things. Yeah, he's into a lot of the same things. He loves sci-fi, and he actually writes sci-fi stories.
Yeah.
And so he just came to me and said, "Would you do this? I've written this song, and would you be interested in doing it with us?" So, Jesse's Girl's kind of taken on a total life of its own.
Wow.
It's really just from the moment it was put into Boogie Nights, it kind of has gone on to some other thing.
It's good to have one of those songs if you're an artist.
It is.
It's good to have a bunch of hits, of course, but if you got that song that everybody knows, that you just transcends everything, and along will outlive you. It's crazy. Before they cut me here with you, I want to make sure you can talk about what you're doing now. So you're going out doing dates. Did I read properly that there's a new best of record coming?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
the Greatest Hits 2.
Greatest Hits 2 coming soon.
Yeah.
And you did a record last year of new material, Automatic, right?
Automatic, yep.
And so you just continue to do scattered dates. And any acting stuff that you're still doing?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of doing something now that I can't talk about, I don't think, because they like to keep it all secret, But it's a cool show, and I love acting. I really do. I got more into it as I got older and could draw from more. I had more to draw from as far as experience and understood the art a little better. It's the same thing as music. It's just a different skill set,
Right.
But it's, and I love to play. I go out because I love to play. I mean, sometimes I'll come home and I go, man, I'm just so friggin' tired. I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And then a week later, I go, God, I want to play.
Right.
That's why guys go out and just jam, There's a place called Dreamland in Malibu where I live, and Chad from Red Hot Chili Peppers has a thing down there that he goes and plays with a bunch of people.
Yep.
People just love to do that, You just love to. You got to play, and it's really not about adoration or anything like that at this point. It's about doing what you pick the guitar up for in the first place.
Yeah. We should also mention, of course, we're here on Sirius XM, that you also do a radio show. You're on 80s at 8.
I am on 80s at 8. Oh my God, I know. I don't know. My manager talked me into it, and it's fun. I do, I'm not a DJ, but the first thing I ever wanted to be was a DJ. So be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, yeah. And last thing, I referenced this as you walked in, and I'm sure you hear about it a lot, but it's a good thing to hear about. You mentioned you're 75 years old. I'm seriously, man, you look 25 years younger easily.
Well,
is it genetics? What are you doing?
I think genetics take you certain. My dad died early, actually, and you pay attention to those kind of things. My dad died from bad food, and during the war, and tension and all that. And I've tried to, from the moment he died, he died twice, actually. It was very weird, but first time he died, they brought him back. And from that moment on, I focused on food, on finding out the best food that I could eat and the cleanest food. And that's one thing. Another thing is meditation. Another thing is loving what you do. And I love what I do,
So are you like vegetarian and all that, vegan or anything like that?
I went vegan, and I love being vegan. I've never felt better in my life, but I got so thin that friends would come up to me and go, "Hey, oh, dude, you okay?" I got real thin, but I felt great. But I had to put fish back in the diet, which I do. I don't do dairy, but it's not just that. It's really just, I don't know in the end what it is. It's just loving what you do, and seeing. I'm big on visualization too. Manifesting stuff, and I've managed to manifest some stuff. And you see people, we've all manifested, things for ourselves, and it's very important. That's the great power that we have. We can manifest something that an animal can't conceive of. That's really the real difference, is we can create a future that is not possible by looking at this person. You look at a little kid in Australia, 7 years old, stealing candy from a store or something, going, you'll be a star in America, and I'll have all this stuff. And it's just this. I could talk forever on visualization. That's and goal setting and all that. It's very important, and that's been really helpful to me. You should do lectures or something on it, because it's compelling to me, and it'd be interesting with your experience and how you've made that work for you, and your struggles that you referenced earlier. All of that. It would be interesting. I've done a couple of talks on depression.
Yeah.
But
it would be very helpful to a lot of people.
Yeah, I always talk about it in my shows, because I do a song called "World Start Turning." That was the first song I wrote about the fact that I had to deal with depression for an album in 1989, 88 or something. And I do that in my talk a little bit about it, just at every show. And you always get people coming up after and going, that really was helpful that you talked about it. Just to know that, you're not alone, kind of thing.
Right. All right, they're giving me the kill sign.
All right.
You got to go. You got a show tonight. I hope you feel better. I thank you for coming by for a few minutes.
Always fun.
And when you've got more time, I'd love to really sit down and dig in with you for a couple hours, go through your career, talk music, talk bands, whenever we find ourselves in the kids' playroom or somebody's living room again. Maybe we'll actually do it in the studio at Sirius XM in LA or something. We'll actually do it in a real setting.
Unheard of.
We should make that happen at some point. We'll work on that. Thank you again. Have a great show tonight. Good to see you, Rick.
Thanks.
Feel better, man. Thank you. All right, there he goes, everybody. Rick Springfield. Let's throw to a break. We'll be back with more. We'll take some calls from you guys coming up next on Trunk Nation, Faction Talk 103, or on the app.